Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of the movie A Quiet Place that I watched on demand on Xfinity from FX. And my only bad thing to say is how that whole system worked, where they just pumped ads in stupidly randomly and you couldn't really, fuck with them at all. Otherwise, I really enjoyed this movie. I thought its pacing was pretty good. I liked that it was just under 90 minutes, barring those fucking ads. And I really liked how John Krasinski directed this and what was kind of going on here. So, we pretty much get a kind of set up kind of scenario of showing us what's kind of going on. We get put into day 89 of some kind of event that's going on, that these certain kind of creatures hunt by sound. We see this family kind of like scavenging for supplies, looking specifically evidently for medicine for one of their other children. Now, at first I was like, okay, who are these guys' names? And then I looked on the Wikipedia, but I'm like, bearded man, the mother, kid that needs medicine, later calling him Clutch because he messes around with a car. The daughter could be Hawkeye because she has hearing problems, and then we get Rocket Man, who doesn't survive very long. Because we're seeing that he's very much into the space shuttle. He does sign language to communicate with, of course, his sister, and we find out that, let's see here, John Krasinski is Lee, the father, Emily Blunt is Evelyn, we've got Marcus as the second child and eldest son, we've got Reagan, and we've got Bo. So, they're kind of going around, we see that they're trying to be as quiet as possible, not trying to make as much sound. We see that Bo wants to pretty much get on a rocket ship and leave because of what has occurred. It's like, okay, what's kind of going on here? So we see that this thing can make lights and sounds, and the father's like, nope, we can't do this. No. Leaves the space shuttle toy and the batteries, but Reagan, understanding her brother, decides to give him the shuttle. However, he, in his own stupid wisdom, decides to take the batteries with him and puts them into the shuttle. So we see that they've marked out this path with sand to pretty much dampen as much noise as possible. So they're kind of making their way back. They had gotten medicine for Marcus, and he was pretty much being carried. But then we see that Bo decides to be playing with the toy. It makes a sound, and one of the creatures comes and just kills him. And it's pretty effective. It creates this whole kind of thing of, oh god, here are the stakes, here's what's going on, and it's pretty fast. Otherwise, it kind of pretty much takes a kind of Jaws approach here. A Jaws approach slash Alien, where we don't really get to see these kind of monsters and creatures until later on in the film, and using them to kind of inform our characters and our actions and to see what's kind of going on here. And I do like that this is mostly a kind of quiet film. I know because it's the title, but it also got to, there's certain situations where for your survival, you be as quiet as possible, especially when you're told very young or whatnot, children should be seen and not heard. It's like, even in certain circumstances, they're like, you shouldn't even be seen either. It's like, shit. So I usually try and be as quiet as possible, where some people are like, oh shit, you're ninja in here around here. It's like, kind of, because you learn those kind of skills. So the film resonated with me on that kind of bit, where I'm like, the thing is, I can understand people who would be choked off in this kind of scenario because of quieting themselves and everything like that. And I'm like, this, I get this. I understand this, because a lot of adults are like, shut the fuck up, you little bastard kind of shit. Now, I never got to that complete level where it's kind of Home Alone, like, you little fucker, I'm gonna fucking crack your ass, or whatnot. But you get that, it's like, if you don't stay quiet, bad things will happen, and we see that shit going on. So, we started at day 89, we pop up back in at around 472? Let me see if this thing tells me. No. So, then pop up, we see that the family is dealing with some crazy shit. Um, Evelyn. Evelyn? Yes. Sorry, they didn't really do a lot with the name. So, Evelyn is pregnant. Uh, we see that Lee is attempting to re-engineer and scavenging parts and is trying to build this hearing aid for his daughter, and she's just like not having it. She can't go down to his kind of work study, and we see that he is attempting to figure out what's going on with these monsters, these creatures, which are called death angels. They've got really sharp hearing, impenetrable armored skin, and like they've taken out a lot of the human population. He's attempting to try and use radios to try and figure out where other people are. We do also see at night that they do like kind of signal beacons showing that there are still humans around. And I'm also like making the Gondor calls for aid and Rohan will answer kind of shit. It's like interesting. So we know that they're not completely alone. We also see that as him and Marcus go pretty much on kind of like a bonding, teaching kind of moment, which is another kind of effective thing that goes on. So he attempts to do it, and we see that attempts to give her this thing to see if it'll work, and he is trying to do this with a lot of hope in his heart to try and fix this kind of thing. It's the only kind of little thing that he can do to try and help his daughter. And the thing is, she has enormous guilt over what happened to Bo. So does Lee and Evelyn. We learn that later on after more in the film that Evelyn also beats herself up. Everybody kind of beats themselves up, which is it's understandable for them to have that, and I do like that they dig in on that. Me, I'm just like, the kid knew what was going on, knew he needed to be quiet, and decided to do it anyway. Sure, he's a 4-year-old. Because we see later on that they've built a grave for him from like 2016 to 2020. And showing, casing that these parents are trying to do their utmost to protect their kids. And the thing is, he made a fatal mistake. And like, even though I'm watching it, I'm outside. But since that sibling kind of relationship is kind of an important kind of thing, I also understand that at a certain kind of instance, you have to separate certain kind of things. That's where I'm at here. Normally, if I was kind of like the older kind of sibling, like Reagan in this situation, I would be beating myself up at that point if I was at that same point she was at. However, being where I'm at now, if I was where I'm at now, at that kind of point, I would just be like, the kid made the dumbest kind of decision. But it informs these characters and how they kind of go forward. Because she pretty much got the shuttle back and turned on the lights and everything like that. So she goes and pretty much hangs out at the grave, kind of dealing with her guilt. She's supposed to be at home caretaking with her mother. Mainly to make sure that she's alright and everything like that. But they can't really communicate as much, which the father should do, because she wanted to go with the father to do the kind of stuff to kind of learn about that, and Marcus really didn't. We see other kind of stuff going on as they're playing kind of a board game, and they accidentally knock some stuff over and pretty much almost set stuff on fire. But it's not the fire that's the dangerous kind of part, it's the sound. And of course Marcus is deathly afraid and is sorry of what had happened, but it was an accident. But in here, even the slightest accident can lead to horrendous kind of consequences. So they kind of split up, and we see that Lee is able to kind of talk to him, kind of get him out of his shell. He's deathly afraid of making sound and everything, but they're at the river, they've got fish and everything. He's like, don't make a sound, don't make it. And he's like, listen, there's a bigger sound around here, I'll drown it out, and we're okay. And having that kind of moment and understanding what's kind of going on. I really wish that Lee had communicated to Reagan how important it was to kind of stay back. It's really kind of cool to see that kind of space that I'm at right now, where I can still see all sides of what's going on. She's kind of chafing that, like, why are you still treating me like a child? And I want to do these kind of things to help out and be better and everything. Whereas I think that he was giving her the more important kind of task at this point. Yes, it's important to kind of understand the fish and everything like that and learn about that and get all those things. But your mother's pregnant. She could go into labor at kind of any moment, because we see her kind of going through taking her own blood pressure, listening to the baby's heartbeat and everything. And I'd be like, yeah. So that introduces some kind of crazy shit as everything starts to kind of collate towards the kind of back half of this film. So, let's see here. Yeah. Because that gets fucking kind of crazy. And we see that he does, Marcus does talk with Lee and is like, listen, she feels guilt. Do you still love her? And he's like, yeah, of course. And this is where they have a kind of small kind of dialogues here, which is nice. It's effectively utilized, in my opinion. So they pretty much are making their way home. They run across that this one woman is dead and her husband is still alive, and he decides to scream and have the Death Angels pop up, or Death Angel, and like come and kill him. And we learn that around the area of the farm, there's about 3 or so, and Lee is still trying to find weaknesses and everything for it. So they kind of get back. We see that Evelyn has gone into labor. She accidentally stabbed her foot, and that's kind of like hobbled her. She starts to... there was that kind of sound. She goes into labor. The other son kind of draws a Death Angel into their homestead, and it's tense as shit. Like, we see bits and, like, we see the monster, but it's not... They use their budget and CGI effectively. They pop out the CGI when it is needed to really showcase the monster when it's needed. Not just to just kind of, like, overutilize it or use... versus minimum CGI to be like, oh, okay, like a Sharknado kind of production. Now there is a difference in what's going on with this versus the Sharknado production. This definitely has the feel of like those old B movies, because you see the sound kind of thing like them and all this kind of stuff, but it takes itself very seriously on that. And it's more kind of like homages to that without actually being those kind of like, oh god, sci-fi movie kind of B-movie kind of things that were like back in the 1950s and then were really drove home on like the Sci-Fi Channel. So those could be pretty good even though they're pretty bad. It's that kind of balance of like, do you understand what you're making? So, we see that the monster is attempting to get to her. She is attempting to have a child in the middle of this, which is just fucking nuts. It's like, holy shit, what's going to go on? How's this going to work out? So we see that Reagan's able to pop back up, as well as Lee and Marcus. Marcus pretty much gets like knocked out at a certain kind of spot, and Reagan's able to find him. Lee is utilizing, he has a shotgun, but is able to kind of like not use it, and is able to get her and the baby that she had in pretty much the shower down to their kind of soundproof room that we had seen in the barn, and kind of set them up there. And they even have this specialized kind of baby box that they've got, so that the baby can be like safe, but make the noises that it can't, that it doesn't know that it shouldn't be making. That's the thing. It's a baby. Like, there is a difference between Bo and the baby. The baby just got popped up in and does not understand the rules of the world. Bo, I understand, has some issues because 4 years old, probably was like a screamy kind of kid. And then, of course, everything kind of changed. It's been like only 89 days, so doesn't understand the complete consequences of what goes on. And this is, of course, where Lee and Evelyn have their kind of conversation of being afraid of being unable to protect their children, and everything that went on with Bo, and how she had her arms free and she should have been carrying him, and what was kind of going on, and seeing the kind of pain that they're able to communicate to each other before things start kind of like falling apart. He's trying to figure out where Reagan and Marcus are, so he goes out there, but then for somehow water starts flooding into the barn, and a Death Angel is pretty much going after her and the baby, but she's able to get back into the main house of the homestead and kind of get herself into the basement. Reagan and Marcus are able to get themselves up onto this kind of corn silo. However, before this, we start to see some interesting kind of interplay, because Reagan is in this kind of row of corn, and a Death Angel is kind of popping up and utilizing its hearing kind of like in a sonar kind of manner to kind of echolocate what's going on. But this produces a feedback thing onto her hearing aid, which starts reverberating and fucking around with the Death Angel, and it's like, and it just like kind of fucks off, and it's like, okay. So they kind of light some stuff up on there. However, the thing that really gets the father's attention is that Marcus falls into the corn silo. This, of course, really is fucked up, because it's kind of like quicksand, and he's kind of falling down. Reagan's like, fuck this shit, and goes down to pretty much get him onto a door that had fallen in. But she's getting sucked down as well, but he's able to get her up, and a Death Angel kind of pops up to try and take them out as well. Now, they had utilized fireworks to pretty much draw off the Night Angels from the house, so that way she could give birth safely. That was mainly Marcus and Lee. Let's see. But Reagan's ear implant emits a high-pitched sound, and the Death Angel's like, eat my ass, and then just kind of books it out, and they're able to kind of get out of there. So that's where they kind of link up with Lee. He kind of gets them to this truck, and he's trying to pretty much get this axe, but of course there's a Death Angel above there, and it kind of smacks him. But they're kind of making sounds in the truck to kind of get it away from him, but it's going after them and almost attempting to kill them, so Lee screams, but he signs that he loves Reagan and pretty much sacrifices himself to protect them. They then drive the truck pretty much back to the house as the Death Angel is attempting to go after them, and we see that Evelyn gives the baby to Marcus, hiding them in a corner. She pretty much takes the shotgun, and then Reagan is able to kind of figure out what's kind of going on with it as it's trying to do this it's kind of echolocation thing. She then utilizes pretty much the sound system and this microphone to super blast some sound, and it fucks the thing up, but then it comes back up, but its head's discombobulated, and Evelyn's able to shoot its head off with the shotgun, leading us towards the end of the movie where Death Angels are coming back, but they know how to fight them now with the weakness, and it ends with Evelyn cocking the shotgun, which is like, okay, that's a pretty awesome and kind of effective way to kind of end it like that. I really liked how that was. It's just like, do, and it's like, oh god. So, I liked this movie because it understood what it was and what it was attempting to kind of accomplish and kind of convey. It is simple in a good way. It is a tale of parents attempting to protect their children in this world with things that are pretty much beyond their knowledge at this point. But yet they then learn how to kind of deal with it and combat it. Children as well trying to deal with that kind of chafing, but also working with their parents as well. And that kind of shared guilt, that whole kind of like family kind of thing that you kind of have to deal with shit. And it's like on this backdrop of these indestructible kind of things. However, I do like that it's like, okay, there might be a thing that you can't tackle at this moment, but sometimes through just either sheer luck or just the way it kind of works, you find out a solution, and then you just have to tactically deal with it and figure out how to deal with this kind of stuff. And it didn't feel overdone. I think that the child actors did very well. They didn't get annoying or stupid. I think they were played to their strengths very well, and especially with like giving the content, it didn't feel like, oh god, just like a stereotype of all these kind of kids. They felt like kids trying to figure out how to deal with this world, and the parents as well. And it's like, okay, I kind of understand why this did so well, why people talked about it so well. I'm like, oh god, Jim from The Office, you did a really good job on this. And I think it really helped that John Krasinski and Emily Blunt are husband and wife to sell the husband and wife kind of thing. So that's, of course, there's kind of chemistry there, and of course, their parents as well. And they're able to do that just effortlessly, pretty much. But it didn't feel like I was seeing them, but like these characters in this world. Their real world knowledge helped inform it, but they were still able to inhabit their characters and convey their characters through this. And utilizing sign language and very minimal dialogue is a hard sell. Sometimes you're just going to be like, okay, if it's not done correctly, you're going to get bored. And I didn't get bored with this. I'm like, all right, it's shot very well. I like how it looks. I like how the monsters look, the design-wise of them. They look very strange and gangly and like something that you really wouldn't want to fuck with. They got speed that really just is gnarly when you see it in action, and I think that really helps them out. It goes more, again, with the Jaws kind of comparisons. This film, I think, is very... You definitely see that they hopefully took lessons from Jaws. If not, that's quite alright, but I see similarities to Jaws in how it's like, okay, you effectively utilize the monster, you know that you don't want to overutilize it, or you can't overutilize it. I know in Jaws that they had a very tough time dealing with that goddamn shark, and that it created a lot of fucking problems, and that was more of the limiting factor. However, the hallmarks of a very good director is that you, even though you have that limitation, you're able to make a film that transcends it, and it's like, oh god, you only see certain kind of bits, and then you see the motherfucking shark. It's like, oh god, that has informed a lot of movies. You see that kind of same thing with Alien. You see that kind of build-up and escalation in John Carpenter's The Thing. In very effective horror movies, well, in certain kind of horror movies, certain ones have different objectives. If your objective is to get suspense, and then get that kind of real giant kind of terror, that works very well in this kind of movie, Jaws, Alien, The Thing. And then there's the other ones where it's just like gore and craziness, and that's the kind of horror, or body horror. No, body horror also kind of links up with John Carpenter's The Thing, but it's that kind of slow burn escalation that pops up and you're like, holy fucking shit, to where you start really going crazy. It's like, what the fuck's going on here? I really enjoyed this one. I would definitely hang this up as one of my favorite horror / sci-fi ones. It's really interesting that most of the horror ones that I have favorite-wise also are sci-fi, where sci-fi is like one of my favorite genres just to begin with, but that kind of mashup is usually kind of what happens. Alien, The Thing, and now this. Now this one doesn't go complete kind of sci-fi route, except just for the creature monster that's kind of going on here, but they use kind of science and stuff to kind of try and figure out how to deal with this, and wrapping that around with the characters and the whole family kind of thing just worked very well for me. It just connected on a level that I'm like, hey, I like this, and I really enjoyed it. So I'm also going to enjoy kind of looking through the other films in the series and seeing kind of where it goes from there, because I would have been fine with this one just being a one and done, but there is interesting kind of potential in exploring what these creatures are, how this then changes the situation of how quiet you need to be, what you attempt to do with these creatures. Do you take them all out? Do you try and harness them for certain nefarious kind of purposes? Fucking Weyland Yutani, you goddamn motherfuckers from the Aliens franchise. Aliens and Predators. All that kind of stuff. There's a lot of different kind of ways that things could be done with this. And I would recommend this. It does have blood, but it doesn't get too gory. So if you're not into horror stuff, again, I would not recommend it. But it's a kind of not a complete dodge this motherfucker. It's if you feel like you can handle it. It is not super, super gory. you see people getting taken out, but you don't see complete and utter aftermath. Even when Lee gets killed, he just gets taken out. It's not... They don't do the focus of the gore and the kill. They do the focus on the emotional aftermath more on that. So, see if it messes with you or not. So, it's kind of weird for me to say, like Alien or The Thing. Definitely The Thing is like, that's some gross out shit. You're gonna see some crazy ass shit. You're gonna see some blood and everything. Torture porn of like the hostile kind of variety. You dodge that motherfucker like ain't nobody's business. This one can be kind of scary. Definitely scary to kids. Probably also scary to parents because like I can't protect them from something like this. But not in a kind of gory kind of sense. Yeah, but I would definitely recommend it for the characters, the world building, and kind of the lore. Even though there's not a lot said, there's a lot shown, which is like cool. I'm like, all right, cool. I think they did a really good job with this, and I'm definitely gonna be looking forward to like trying to get this physically or whatnot because I'm like, yeah, Gopher, this worked out really well. I'm like, yeah. So those are my opinions on the movie. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.